November 5th, 1995. Jim Carrey kept a check in his wallet for years. $10 million, made out to himself, for acting services rendered. Dated Thanksgiving 1995. He wrote it when he was broke, when Hollywood had rejected him repeatedly, when he was sleeping in cheap apartments barely able to eat. November 1995 arrives. Jim signs a contract. $20 million for the cable guy. The first actor in history paid that amount for a single film. The check came true, but success didn't bring the peace he expected. This is the story of one of the most famous comedians in the world and why he chose to walk away from it all. The homeless janitor who became Hollywood royalty, the comedian who lost himself in the characters he played, the man who manifested his destiny, achieved it, and then walked away asking, was any of it real? This is Jim Carrey, from Hollywood's biggest comedy star to one of its most mysterious figures today. This is Era Review, where fame meets truth. We break down the scandals the internet wants to forget. January 17th, 1962. James Eugene Carrey is born in Newmarket, Ontario, Canada. His father, Percy Carey, was a musician who later worked as an accountant to support the family. His mother, Kathleen, struggled with chronic illness and often spent days confined to bed. During those difficult moments, young Jim discovered something powerful. He could make her laugh, and for a few minutes, the pain seemed to fade away. That's when he realized something important, very early in life. Sometimes laughter isn't just entertainment, it's survival. Jim was only 12 years old when everything changed. His father suddenly lost his job, and the family's financial stability disappeared almost overnight. Before long, they lost their home and were forced to move into a Volkswagen van parked on a relative's property. 4 people sharing one small space, trying to get through the cold Canadian winter together. To survive, the entire family becomes janitors at a factory in Burlington. Every day, Jim goes to school. Every night, he works 8-hour shifts scrubbing toilets, mopping floors, emptying trash. And through all of this, Jim was still just a young teenager trying to understand what was happening to his family. But most of his classmates had no idea what his life was like after the bell rang. By 15, the pressure on his family was too much, and Jim made a difficult decision. He left high school and started working full-time to help support them. But that experience taught Jim something important. When he stood on a stage and made people laugh, suddenly he mattered.
I think 9 out of 10 of the worst impulses we get, though, are when we're behind the wheel of a car, you know? That's why I don't think it's a good idea to carry a gun in the glove compartment. Because chances are, if it's there, sooner or later, you're gonna use it. Of course, then again, what are you gonna do if somebody cuts you off on the freeway? Just let them go?
Comedy was no longer just something he enjoyed. It became a way to hold on to his confidence and self-worth. In 1979, at just 17 years old, he moved to Los Angeles with about $100 in his pocket, chasing the dream of becoming a comedian. The reality was far from glamorous. It was years of open mics, small showcases, and constant rejection. Jim gets his breakthrough on In Living Color. His characters, Fire Marshal Bill, Vera DeMilo, make him a breakout star. Audiences noticed, casting directors noticed, and for the first time, Hollywood started paying attention. Then, 1994 explodes. 3 movies. 1 year, February, Ace Ventura: Pet Detective. Budget $15 million. Box office $107 million. July, The Mask. Budget $23 million. Box office $351 million worldwide. December, Dumb and Dumber. Budget $17 million. Box office $247 million. $700 million in 1 year. Nobody in Hollywood history had ever done that. Then came The Cable Guy. Jim Carrey signed a contract worth $20 million, becoming the first actor in Hollywood history to earn that much for a single film. Around that time, he pulled out the old check he had written to himself years earlier on Mulholland Drive, dated Thanksgiving 1995. The promise he once made to himself had finally come true. Late 1990s, Jim achieves everything: Liar Liar, The Truman Show, Man on the Moon, critical acclaim, box office domination, net worth $180 million. And he's miserable. The Truman Show fundamentally changes him. The film is about a man who discovers his entire life is a reality show. Everyone is acting, Nothing is real. Jim starts feeling that way about fame. He's Jim Carrey, the character, the funny guy, the performer. But who is James Eugene Carrey? That person got buried under success. He dives into Buddhism, philosophy, spirituality, searching for meaning. In interviews, he says things like, "I think everybody should get rich and famous and do everything they ever dreamed of so they can see that it's not the answer." Hollywood didn't quite know what to do with this new version of Jim Carrey. The industry loved the comedian who could deliver huge box office hits and outrageous comedy. Another strange moment adds fuel to internet rumors. 2014, Jim appears on Jimmy Kimmel Live and jokingly accuses the host of being part of the Illuminati. During the segment, he mocks conspiracy theories about secret hand symbols and hidden elites. He makes triangle hand gestures. He talks about all-seeing eyes and secret societies controlling Hollywood. The whole thing is clearly satire. Jim is doing comedy, but clips quickly spread online. Conspiracy communities begin claiming Carrey is secretly exposing the Illuminati. Reddit threads explode. YouTube videos with titles like "Jim Carrey reveals the truth about Hollywood" get millions of views. The moment was comedy, but it's reinterpreted as confession. In reality, the segment was meant as satire. Jim was making fun of conspiracy theorists, not validating them. But the internet doesn't care about context. The clip becomes evidence that Jim Carrey has inside knowledge of Hollywood's dark secrets. In September 2012, Jim Carrey met Cathriona White, an Irish makeup artist. She was in her late 20s, bright, creative, and trying to build her own path in Los Angeles. The two began an on and off relationship over the next few years. Like many complicated relationships, they broke up, got back together, and struggled to find stability together. Friends later described the relationship as difficult at times, but those close to them said he cared deeply about her and wanted to support her through her struggles. In September 2015, the relationship ended once again, this time through a series of text messages. Just 4 days after the breakup, Cathriona White was found dead in her Los Angeles home. Authorities later ruled her death an overdose involving prescription medications, including Ambien, Percocet, and propranolol. Some reports stated that the medications were linked to prescriptions associated with Jim Carrey, which later became part of a legal dispute. She left a note addressed to Jim. "I've spent 3 days now in disbelief that you're not here. I've called you a couple times, but I guess you're busy. I'm sorry that my very existence causes you pain. I tried to kill myself before in May, but I failed. This time I won't." Jim is shattered. He releases a statement. "I am deeply saddened by the passing of my sweet Cathriona. She was a truly kind and delicate Irish flower, too sensitive for this soil, to whom loving and being loved was all that sparkled." October 2015. Cathriona's mother, Bridget Sweetman, files a wrongful death lawsuit against Jim. The allegations are devastating. It claims he used a fake name, Arthur King, to obtain prescription drugs illegally and gave them to her. It claims he knew she was suicidal and broke up with her anyway. The media circus is brutal. Text messages, medical records. Jim's personal life is ripped open for public consumption. Jim's legal team fights back, claiming Cathriona manipulated him, faked STD tests to extort money, threatened to control him emotionally. They call her a con artist. It's ugly. Both sides are at war. But behind the legal battle, Jim is collapsing. Guilt, grief, public humiliation crushing him. January 2018. The lawsuit is dismissed. Cathriona's family withdraws the case. No settlement details are disclosed publicly. Legally, Jim wins. But emotionally, he's destroyed. September 12th, 2017. Something breaks publicly. Jim attends New York Fashion Week. A reporter from E! News approaches him and asks why he's there. His response shocks the world. "I wanted to find the most meaningless thing that I could come to, and here I am." You've got to admit, this is completely meaningless.
I wanted to find the most meaningless thing that I could come to and join, and here I am.
The reporter looks confused. Jim continues, "There is no me. There are just things happening, and there are clusters of tetrahedrons moving around. There is no meaning to any of this."
There is no me.
There's no you.
No.
We're not here. This is a dream?
There's just things happening. And there are clusters of tetrahedrons moving around together.
Okay.
The clip goes viral. Millions of views. Major news outlets cover it. Social media explodes. Is Jim Carrey okay? Is this a mental breakdown? Performance art? A philosophical statement? It's not a joke. It's not performance art. It's a man who's been through childhood poverty, decades of rejection, sudden global fame, a girlfriend's suicide, a brutal lawsuit, and endless public scrutiny, realizing that the ego is an illusion, that Jim Carrey is a character he plays, that the real person underneath has been lost. The interview quickly became a cultural moment. Clips spread across the internet, and people everywhere began trying to interpret what Jim Carrey meant. Some saw it as a philosophical statement. Others wondered if he was struggling mentally. Online, conspiracy theories even claimed that Hollywood had broken him. But Carrey later explained that he was talking about a concept from Buddhist philosophy, the idea of non-self, which suggests that the identity we cling to, the ego, is something we create rather than something permanent. Whether people understood that or not didn't matter. Jim Carrey had officially become different. Jim Carrey essentially disappears from Hollywood. He retreats to Hawaii, buys a secluded property, grows a full beard, stops making movies. The world barely sees him, but he's not idle. He starts painting obsessively. Political art, chaotic, angry portraits of Donald Trump, Mitch McConnell, Sarah Huckabee Sanders. He posts them on social media. Some people love it. Some think he's lost his mind. Jim doesn't care. He's not performing anymore. He's processing. In a short documentary titled I Needed Color, Jim describes how painting helped him process emotions he couldn't communicate through acting. He explains that art allowed him to express thoughts and feelings buried under decades of performance. In rare interviews during this period, he talks about ego death, the illusion of self, fame as prison. He says, I realized I had spent my whole life trying to become Jim Carrey, and Jim Carrey isn't real. It's just a character I created for the public. Around this time, Showtime approached Jim Carrey with a series called Kidding. The story followed a beloved children's TV host struggling with grief and emotional breakdown after a personal tragedy. In many ways, the role felt very close to Jim's own life. He agreed to do it. The show ran for 2 seasons and was praised by critics for its honesty and emotional depth. But despite the strong reviews, the audience remained small. For many viewers, the story felt almost too real, too heavy, and too close to the truth. Then the pandemic arrives. Around that time, Jim Carrey returns briefly to the spotlight with Sonic the Hedgehog, a film that goes on to earn more than $400 million worldwide. But his presence feels different. He does only a handful of interviews, mostly over Zoom from home. And the Jim Carrey people see now isn't the same high-energy comedian they remember. He seems older, calmer, and far more at peace. Then, Saturday Night Live reaches out. They ask Jim to play Joe Biden during the 2020 election season. For a short time, he's back in front of the audience, doing impressions, physical comedy, the kind of performances that made him famous. But something feels different. The energy is calmer, more controlled. It almost feels like he's aware of the performance itself. When the election season ends, Jim steps away again and disappears from the spotlight once more. Sonic the Hedgehog 2 releases, $405 million worldwide. During the press tour, Jim makes a surprising announcement. I'm retiring. Yeah, I'm being fairly serious. I really like my life right now. I love painting. I love my spiritual life. And if the angels bring some sort of script that's written in gold ink that says to me that it's going to be really important for people to see, I might continue down the road. But I'm taking a break. Jim Carrey, one of the biggest movie stars in history, is retiring at 60 years old. Just done. But that comment, if the angels bring some sort of script, keeps fans speculating. Could Jim return? Is there a role that would bring him back? Sonic 3 is announced for 2024, and rumors swirl that Jim might reprise Dr. Robotnik despite his retirement claim. As of 2026, the question remains, is Jim Carrey truly retired, or is he waiting for the right moment to return? Another reason people constantly discuss Jim Carrey online is his dramatic physical transformation. Over the last decade, he's almost unrecognizable from the energetic comedian of the 1990s. Paparazzi photos from Hawaii show a man who looks nothing like Ace Ventura. He wears simple clothes, walks beaches alone, looks peaceful but completely different. Many fans say he looks like a completely different person. Not just older, different. Some wonder if it's intentional. But according to Jim himself, the change is intentional. He's explained in interviews that the Jim Carrey people know is simply a character he created for the public. That's closer to who James Eugene Carrey actually is, the energetic, manic performer. That was the mask. This quieter, contemplative artist, that might be the real person. So what is Jim Carrey's story? Here's what we know. After the tragedy of Cathriona White's death and the very public legal battle that followed, Jim Carrey went through one of the most difficult periods of his life. In interviews later, he spoke about realizing that the identity people knew as Jim Carrey was something he had built for the world, a character shaped by fame and expectations. And after decades of performing, he began to question whether he wanted to keep playing that role anymore. So he walked away. Not because Hollywood rejected him, because he rejected Hollywood. He chose painting over acting, solitude over fame, silence over applause, philosophy over punchlines. And in doing so, he became the rarest thing in entertainment. Someone who got everything they ever wanted and realized it wasn't the answer. Someone who climbed to the top of the mountain and decided the view wasn't worth it. Someone who chose to stop being the character and try to find the person underneath. Jim Carrey's legacy isn't Ace Ventura or The Mask or Dumb and Dumber. Those are performances. His real legacy is this: you can manifest your dreams. The funniest man alive stopped laughing. Not because he broke, not because Hollywood destroyed him, but because he finally realized the joke was on all of us. We're all performing. We're all chasing success. We're all trying to become someone. Maybe it's just being. Jim Carrey wrote himself a check for $10 million. It came true. He cashed it. And then he walked away from everything it represented. That's not failure. That's freedom.
This was Era Review,
where we break down the scandals the internet wants to forget. But Jim Carrey's story isn't a scandal. It's a mirror. It shows us that success is an illusion. Fame is a performance. And sometimes the bravest thing you can do is walk away from everything you built to find out who you are without it. If this story moved you, hit that like button. Subscribe if you're new here. Drop a comment and tell me, do you think Jim Carrey made the right choice walking away? Or do you think he gave up too soon?